Welcome everybody to today's webinar. While we wait for people to finish joining, I'll play a short video here. The video's audio plays through your computer's default audio device, so if you don't hear it through your headphones, you might have to check your computer speakers, computer audio setup.
DTS Software. We are the original storage management experts. You hear so much about automation these days, but did you know that DTS has been automating ZOS storage since way before automation was a buzzword? When you partner with DTS, you partner with more than 30 years of storage management expertise. Why DTS? Here are 4 great reasons. First, unlike our competitors, we didn't acquire the technology in a competitor buyout. We built it from the ground up. Many of the original developers of our software are still part of our company, and we put this staff's know-how up against anyone's. Second, with solutions developed from customer insights, our product line across the board is quick to deploy, easy to use, and exceptionally functional. Third, leveraging automation for storage management opens up more time for DBAs and users alike to spend valuable time on more strategic initiatives in your data center. Fourth, and most importantly, when you need support, just call us. When you do, you'll get an experienced team member on the phone, an actual human to help you on your first call. At DTS Software, you're not just a number to us, you're a valued partner. Our goal has never been to be the biggest software vendor, just to be the best. Our vision has always been to create storage management products that easily scale to customer needs. We're so confident in our solutions that we offer fully functional trials of any of our companion products free for a year. What started in 1991 continues to grow today. DTS Software, the original storage management experts.
All right, setting you as presenter here, Jerry. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever is applicable to you, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Taking the Guesswork Out of COBOL Migration with DTS Software's newest migration manager, featuring Tom Ross, Captain COBOL. A little bit of history here. In the late 1950s, computer users and manufacturers were concerned about the rising costs of application development. Programs had to be rewritten anytime new hardware was brought in. At that time, application migration costs were nearly 3/4 of new program development costs. Businesses wanted a common programming language that would be portable from one piece of hardware to another, and thus COBOL was born in 1959. Ever since then, COBOL programs have been an integral part of data processing around the world. Applications are written, updated, and retired, but almost never deleted. This digital hoarding is not usually a problem for a majority of companies. The most widely used version of enterprise COBOL for ZOS was released in 2009 and still fully supported by IBM late into 2010s. Things seemed like they would continue this way until IBM announced in February 2019 that COBOL 4.2 would reach end of support in April of 2022. With only 3 years to migrate all of their code up 2 major versions, companies were left with a simple yet difficult question. Which programs do they actually use? Today, our speakers will discuss some challenges that businesses face in this modern-day migration dilemma, how to approach them, and how to overcome them. This presentation is sponsored by DTS Software, a US-based software developer located in Raleigh, North Carolina. DTS is a recognized global leader in enterprise storage management technology for IBM ZOS, Hitachi VOS3, Fujitsu MSP operating systems. The company was founded in 1991 and currently has more than 1,000 customers around the world. For more information on DTS, please visit dtssoftware.com. Our speakers today are DTS Software Senior Developer Jerry Spencer with featured guest Tom Ross, better known as Captain COBOL. Jerry started as an application programmer back in 1975. He became a systems programmer not too long after that in 78. And his career predates the internet as we know it, PCs, cell phones, Wi-Fi, and a host of other technology. Jerry has a passion for sharing his knowledge and expertise for everybody who's willing to listen. Tom Ross started at IBM in 1983 and has spent his entire career in COBOL development. He's worked on the compiler and runtime libraries for every release of VS COBOL 2, COBOL for OS 390 and VM, and Enterprise COBOL. He understands the migration challenges for Enterprise COBOL and language environment on z/OS, and the issues facing IBM mainframe customers. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a short QA session. Attendee microphones are muted for the presentation, but you may ask a question or request webinar assistance at any time during the webinar through the Ask a Question interface. All questions will be addressed at the end of the webinar. And after the webinar, all registrants will receive a link where you can download the slide deck and watch the webinar on demand. Thank you again for joining us today. Jerry? Gotta unmute yourself. Oh, it appears we're having technical issues. All right, I tried to unmute you, Jerry.
All right,
There we go.
That's much better. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And we're going to talk about COBOL Migration Manager. Henceforth, it'll be known as CMM. We're going to talk about why you have to do a COBOL migration, how to go about accomplishing that feat. Then we'll look at what CMM can do for you. And after I tell you what it can do, then I will actually show you what you can do with a live demonstration, and then we'll have our wrap up. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom Ross, and he'll talk about why we're doing COBOL migrations.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I was still muted even when I pushed unmute. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Ross, work for IBM. And I love the name Captain COBOL, but I didn't come up with it. A coworker gave that to me, and I thought it was hilarious. So I put a sign on my door, and I've been Captain COBOL ever since. So got to have some fun with things. Okay. So why are we here? We're here because IBM created a whole new generation of COBOL compilers starting in 2013, and migration to them is very different than anything before. So we need to know how to deal with these new releases of the COBOL compiler. The reason for them is that they can exploit the new hardware. And my favorite example is in Z14, IBM added vector packdecimal instructions, which can do decimal arithmetic up to 90% faster than packdecimal instructions, which is the way COBOL compilers have been doing math for 50 years. So it's just incredible, the opportunity for improving performance and exploiting the hardware. And so the better performance is what makes it so attractive to move to the new generation. The new generation of COBOL compilers, by the way, is version 5 and version 6. And version 6 is the only one you can buy from IBM right now. Besides the improved performance and the exploitation of your expensive, shiny machines in your machine room, there's a lot more functionality in the COBOL compiler as well that is not available if you're stuck on version 4. Okay, let's go next slide. IBM has a bunch of information available to help you because help is needed, really. But we have this migration portal that's available, and the link is here in the presentation, and has a whole bunch of information, including schedules of migration and performance tuning webinars, and just a whole ton of information and help for do-it-yourself kind of stuff. But today I'll try to walk you through it myself quickly. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we do this? How do you migrate to new generation COBOL? Next slide. The big difference is that all your programs will recompile with COBOL version 6. Now there's the exception of OSVS COBOL, and we'll talk about that. OSVS COBOL is a total special case, but everything VS COBOL 2 and later will recompile without any changes with the new compiler. So you can't look at the source and try to find out if there's going to be a migration problem. But the compiler will generate different instructions with version 6 than it did with version 4. And this is a good thing because you get better performance. But if your programs have been processing invalid data, you can get different results. And one of the things that this big experiment has revealed is that many of my customers, our customers, have been using invalid data in their COBOL programs for years. Invalid data being data in data items that doesn't conform to the picture in usage. And a common example is spaces in usage display numeric. And so it doesn't append, but it can give you different results. So that's no good. You can't have different results when you recompile. So how do we avoid that? Here's how. First, we need to take an inventory of the executables. And I call them executables because load modules is an obsolete term. They're now called program objects because they're in PDSEs, which is one of the things we have to do is make sure our load libraries are PDSEs. So we need to see how many COBOL programs we have available to run in our inventory and our potential migrations. The other thing you want to know, and by the way, the CMM tool can do this. It'll tell you what compiler is used for every program in your load libraries. The other thing you need to know is, are these programs actually being used? Do I care? And I was thinking about watching the video that one piece of storage management is that if you have programs that you're not running in your load libraries, you can free up some storage by deleting them. You don't want to migrate them, you want to delete them. So get your inventory, figure out which programs need to be migrated, recompile the programs to be migrated with migration options that IBM has added to the COBOL version 6 compiler. Numcheck, parmcheck, init check, there's several, and might as well do SS range as well because we're going to do a migration test. So this is, we call this a 2 compile 2 test process. And by the way, some of my customers don't want to do this. They just want to recompile, run a full regression. If it passes, put it in production and go. That could hide invalid data problems for the future, by the way. And I had a question just the other day. If I bump up my Arch level to take advantage of newer hardware, could I reveal invalid data problems? And the answer is yes. So if you don't fix your invalid data problems, if you don't do this 2 compile 2 test process, it could bite you in the future. So I don't like that. I don't like having hidden monsters in my code that are going to bite me at some point. So we recommend this 2 compile 2 test process. So first compile with migration options, then test. This is a full-on regression test, everything you can throw at your applications. Then if you find invalid data problems, fix them. And then if you don't, that's awesome. That's easy peasy. Then you can just recompile your programs without the migration options. You don't want to go into production with those migration options on. You want to have performance. And those are not for performance at all. They're specifically for migration. So recompile for performance and then promote to production. So that's our process in a nutshell. And then we have another next slide, kind of a bulleted list of what you should do just to review. We got to have an inventory, and the biggest thing that we want to find out is, do you have OSVS COBOL programs? And this is for some of my customers who say, no way, I don't have any of those. That's 1982. Forget about it. And then you do an inventory and you go, oh. So load libraries don't lie. The real facts of your application status is in your load libraries. It's in the data sets. So if you use a nice tool like CMM, you'll find out if you have them or not. And then the second question is, I might have OSVS COBOL programs in my load libraries, but I'm not running them. So I don't care. I want to delete them, not migrate them. And OSVS COBOL programs are extra tricky because they can't mix with COBOL version 6 programs. You can't have OSVS COBOL program call COBOL version 6. This is a new restriction. Up until this new generation of COBOL, you could always mix every different compiled level of code in an application, and they all played nicely in the sandbox. Now we've kind of kicked OSVS COBOL off the island. They can't play anymore. They have to be recompiled in order to mix with version 6. And then on top of that, OSVS COBOL programs don't compile with COBOL version 6. The source is incompatible, so we have to run through a source code conversion tool like IBM's CCCA. There are other products that do it as well. So it's really important to know if we have OSVS COBOL programs and are they actually being used. So which of all of my programs are actually being used? Compile with the migration options, do the test, the to compile, to test process, make application program updates if you have to, and you can, I hate to mention this, but there actually is a bypass of this step. We have some options to tolerate invalid data, but I hate them because what it means is in 5 years when I update to Arch 37 or whatever for Z95, I don't know what's coming in the future. New levels of hardware will reveal problems if you do not fix the invalid data problems in your application. So please do that. So after you fix the invalid data problems and the programs run fine, but go into production. Okay, I think I've said everything about that. All right, next slide, please. So then there's another list of everything you should know, similar to the portal, but this is like just a list of different things. For example, why does new generation COBOL require PDSE for executables? Why can't you have load modules anymore? And why is that a good thing? Actually, that's the nice thing about that is PDSE had a bad reputation for a while, but really it was probably deserved in 2000 and 2001. It's not deserved after 2010. So there's a whole bunch of really good information to get for us engineer types who want to know, why are you doing this? Why is this the way it is? Here's the place to find out everything you need to know. Okay, next slide. I think that's, there we go. So now, one of the things I want to say is that IBM does not have a tool that can tell you if your applications, if your programs are being run or not. This is a missing piece to the puzzle. And so here comes the piece right now. All right, I'll turn it back over to Jerry.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, so we're going to take a look at what CMM can do for you. So right off the bat, we can identify COBOL programs that are executed. And we can give you this information whether the programs are called directly or indirectly. We create an inventory of COBOL programs. You give us your load library, we run through them, we determine, okay, this executable has a COBOL program, this is the name of it. We provide all that information for you, and we do that with negligible system overhead, so it doesn't impact your system, and it doesn't impact your wallet. It has we have reasonable cost, so on both sides, we're making things good for you. Then, once we've got this inventory, we then provide job names and counts of the times that this particular executable has been run. So, if it runs once a month, we can give you that information. Runs once a year. However often it's run, we can tell you how many times that program has been run since we've been monitoring the system. When we create the inventory, we give you a lot of relevant information about each executable, including what compiler is used. So once you get that inventory run, you can go back and say, okay, show me the OSVS COBOL programs. Oh, I've got 3 of those. I didn't think we had any. Are they actually run? So you monitor the system for a while, and if they pop up, you say, aha, this one is being executed. I've got to fix it. So that I think is a valuable piece of information that you need to have to make your migration successful. So how do we go about accomplishing this feat? All right, so you have your system, it's running, you have your COBOL libraries, your executables, your PDSEs, and you start up CMM. Right away, we start writing SMF records for every program that gets fetched. So what we do is, in order to make this have a less of an impact on your system, we don't check to see, okay, is this one of the programs that we're actually interested in? Because we'd have to go and take a look and wander around. We just take, if it's a fetch, we write an SMF record for it, and we do all of the processing after the fact. So right away we start writing SMF records. Then you run your COBOL libraries into our process and create the prog.I dataset. This is the inventory dataset that has all the information about your COBOL executables. So you've been collecting SMF data, you then run it into our process, and we write the SMF data to another dataset, another VSAM cluster called prog.L, and we update prog.I. We update prog.I to indicate that, oh, this executable was run, and it was run by this job on this date at this time, and then we update the count so we know how many times that executable has been used. And once we've done that, we can now give you reports that tell you what programs have been run, which ones haven't been run, how many times they've been run. All that information is available to you. So now you know what you need to do. You can start mapping out your plans for migration. All right, now, we all know that we have this great and wonderful documentation, but oftentimes it's slightly different from what's actually going on in the real world. So in your documentation, you've got payroll for Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. You've got summary payroll, and then you've got a check run. So this is great and wonderful. This is how things go. And at the time this documentation was written, that's what actually happened. But over the course of time, things change. You have the Division 1 gets split up. It gets a different job. Division 2 has another job. Things are different from the way they were when you first wrote the documentation. And we have some history here. Division 3 uses version 3.2.1 since 3.2.2 was coded but never implemented. Then we've got a job called bill job. Now this job is called bill job not because it has anything to do with billing, but because someone named Bill actually wrote the job. So that's the reason that came into existence. So today in the real world, all of this is going on. So the documentation may not have been able to keep up with this historical processing. So you may not know, you may think that this is what's actually running, but CMM will tell you the real deal, and this is what's actually going on in your system. All right, so that's a description of what CMM can do. Let's look at CMM and see it do its thing live and in action. TSO screen over here. All right, so our product is downloaded from the internet, and it consists of 5 PDSs. They're not PDSEs, and we provide you with this information. You download it from the internet, upload it to your mainframe, and now you're ready to do the installation. I'm going to actually walk through the installation to show you how easy it is and how quickly it can be done. So we'll start with our install live. And as you can see, there are 10 members called INSTEP XX. So logically, we'll start with INSTEP 01. I've taken the liberty of putting my own job card and making any necessary changes that are required so that you don't have to see me sit there and muddle through that process. But this comes with a non-existent job card, a job card that you have to change, as well as some variables for the volume serials for the various data sets. So I'm going to submit this job. And it ran, they got a condition code 0. We could be hardworking and dedicated and go look at the output, but I trust the system, so I'm not going to do that. So now you notice that I have not touched step 2. This isn't actually JCL. This is instructions on what you need to do. And in this step, you have to APF authorize your load library. Now, in the case of an existing customer, they've already done this. So they're not concerned about that. A new customer would have to go through this process, APF authorize the data set so that we can run authorize and do the various things that we have to get done. Step 3, this is another step that's for new customers. And this is to take the proc and put it into your proc live data set. So now we get to another step where we actually have some work to do. And this copies members from the install data sets into your production data sets. So we submit it. It runs, got a condition code of 0. So we're happy, we move along. Now the other steps copied everything except the load live. We copy the load live separately. We copy it into an authorized library. And we submit that. And it runs with condition code 0. And at this point, the product is almost executable. So we have some additional steps that have some instructions. We have an ISPF interface that we give you instructions on how to implement. But as far as you're concerned, everything is in place except for the license. We send you the license key in an email. You take it and put it on the mainframe, and you put it into the Parm Live data set, and then you're ready to run. And the production Parm Live is dts.r71.parmlive without the K. And I've got the license, and then I've got a start member that I use so that ordinarily when you start the diff product or the diff proc, it just comes up, diff starts. We've got something called UTA, which is useful tools and accessories, but you're not really ready to do anything. CMM hasn't started yet. Well, I like for it to actually go ahead and start. So I pointed this start member that, and we'll take a look at that. It starts CMM and then just gives you a status so that you know what's actually going on out there. So I'm going to copy both of those to Parm Live. And we will actually start our started task. And as you can see, CMM is up and running. And as I said earlier, at this point, we're now writing SMF records for every module that gets fetched. All right, so just to make life simpler, I'm going to switch the SMF data sets so that from this point, any records that we have for CMM will be brand new, fresh, wonderful ones, rather than something I might have been playing with along the way. All right, so we're now writing SMF records. Life is good. So let's go back over here to our SampLive data set, where we provide you with sample JCL. So the first thing that we need to do is define those two data sets I mentioned, the ProgI data set and the ProgL. Both of them are VSAM KSDSs, and we will create and initialize those data sets right now. So those data sets have been created, but we have not yet put your taken your COBOL libraries and put that information into ProgI. We do that with CMM init, and you get to tell us what COBOL libraries you're interested in us putting into the inventory. And so I've got something called prod.cobol.load, we've got prod.payroll.load, and prod.payables.load. Payables is our accounts payable. So I run this job that populates the ProgI data set, and we're almost ready to actually see what's going on in the world. So let me submit this. And that has run. And this one will actually take a look at the output from, because the sysout will show you what executables we discovered, the names of the CSECs that are COBOL modules, as well as the release of COBOL that they use. Oh my, I've got an OSPF COBOL module called spec prod. Well, we'll look to see if that actually gets executed, and if it is, then that goes on the list. That goes at the top of the list of things that we have to take care of for the migration. All right, so now we're writing SMF records. We've got the ProgI data set up. So now we just need to sit back and wait and see if our COBOL executables are actually being run. So I don't have a production shop, so let's actually go over here and look at our demo jobs that I'm going to run so that we'll have some data to actually look at. So this is the accounts payable job. It runs monthly. So I'm going to submit it. And so it runs, life is good. Now this is the weekly accounts payable job. So we're going to run it. Oh, it ab-ended. And ab-ends happen in life. But since we are taking the fetches, then it doesn't matter whether that program ab-ends or not. We know that this program was run, and we will have an SMF record for it. So I can run my payroll job. I can run another payroll job. Oh, it ab-ended too. Well, that's bad because that's my paycheck. So we'll get with production control, and they can fix that one. And then this is a job that runs that COBOL, that OSPF COBOL program. So according to my calculation, we should have an indication that AP month was run, payable W, so this is the name of the program. Payroll W, spec prod, and I skipped one. That's that one. Paycheck. So those programs should be in SMF records. When we process that SMF data, we should then update ProgI, and then you can have reports to show that those programs have actually run in your system. So let's go back over here. I've got a job to process that SMF data. So before I do that, I need to get that SMF data into a data set. And I do that with another ISMF command. So we've done the switch. Now, you may have noticed, or you may not have noticed, we have a member called CMM rules in this sample data set. That member actually gets copied into your rule lib, and it controls what we do. Now, ordinarily, you get to do all kinds of fancy things with the rules, but in order to make this not as unimpactful on your system, all we do is come into this member and see what the SMF record that you want us to write is. So in this case, I'm writing SMF record 201, and that's all we do. We come out, we get that, and we're done. So we want to make this fast and not have a great impact on your system. So we see that we have 144 201 records, and they are in this data set. So I can come back to my SMF job, pointed at the right data set. And we will go out, read those SMF records, discard the ones that are not 201s, and then we'll process them. And then the last step of this job updates prog.I and prog.L. All right, so now prog.I should indicate that those COBOL executables have been run, what jobs ran them, the date and time, the step, and it also will tell you how many times that executable has been executed. And so we have some canned reports that you can use. And the first one gives you a list of executables that have not been run. And it might be a weekly job. It might be something that will run tomorrow, later on. So it makes sense for you to run for a while before you make any type of decisions about what is actually used and what is not used. And then the second report shows you the executables that actually have been used since we've been monitoring the system. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. So that report is run. I can go now and take a look at it and find out what's going on in my system. All right, so the first report we're going to take a look at is the list of programs that have not been used. And the since date is the date that monitoring actually began. So I can go out, so since we started today, that's the date that you're going to have. If you run for 3 weeks, that's still going to be the date that we started monitoring. So you'll know, okay, we've been running for 3 weeks, and these are the programs that have not been executed in those 3 weeks. And we've got the version level and the compile date, but there's no sense in saying, okay, these are the jobs that ran against these executables, because there aren't any. So none of these have been run, and that makes sense. So let's take a look at what has been run. All right, spec prod, our OSVS COBOL program, has been run. the name of the job is exec spec, and it was run today at 14:35:04. It's version 2, level 4. It was compiled in 2022 on day 192, and it was run one time. Well, that's consistent with what we've actually done. Then we've got AP month, payable W, paycheck, and payroll W. So all of those programs that we ran are accounted for in this listing. So there's a lot of other data that you can look at, but I just wanted to get just your basics. You can see that these are the programs that have run. If I go back and run another job that executes one of these programs, then once we process the SMF data, the times run will be updated. If it's a different job name, that'll change. The runtime and run date will change. So all we show you here is the last job that ran against the modules. ProgL, we can run a report against it, and it will show you all the programs, all the jobs that have run against your COBOL executables. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is what CMM can do for you. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ray.
All right. Yep. So this is the part where hopefully we've gotten your attention, and if you are interested in learning more, the good news is we're opening up a beta program for this product. So next slide, please. So for those of you who do not know what a beta test is, most companies these days will offer an option to beta test a feature or an entire product. This allows the company like us to develop a quality product for our users and new customers, something they want, and then we can evaluate as many real-world use cases so we can fine-tune the features and functionality before it goes GA. Customers can get a preview of the feature or product, typically at no cost, and are able to provide input on changes or additions that they want to see. We at DTS Software have always prided ourselves on developing top-notch software, and we always appreciate the real-world experiences and suggestions from our customers. This is why we decided to run a beta test for our new COBOL Migration Manager, because we need your help to provide the best product that you want. Next slide, please. So how the beta program works. If you send in a request, we'll get to that on the next slide, before the end of March, we'll give you a free 90-day license. We have tech resources who are available to help you with the installation, any kind of questions you have during the beta program. And then if you provide us with feedback, obviously the tech support will be able to help you with any issues or questions you have. But for providing that feedback to us, we'll extend that free license out to 180 days. And if you really like the product, our sales team would love to talk to you about pricing. Next slide, please. So to sign up, you can either scan this QR code on the screen here, or visit this fairly long website address. We will send a link in the follow-up email to this web page that will also contain, this web page is so you can sign up for the beta test. The email that we send out that will contain a link to the webinar recording and the slide deck will also have a link to this web page. And any questions or suggestions that you have, technical or otherwise, you can send those to cmmsupport@dtssoftware.com. Next slide, please. All right, so the logistics of the beta test. If you are an existing customer, it's very easy. You already know our upgrade process. So you just go out there, grab the newest version of SCC, update it, and then we will send you a new license key with all your regular products plus the CMM for those 90 days. And then you follow the 6-step getting started guide. New DTS customers, very similar approach. The only main difference is that you actually have to register on our support website so you can download the software. But then everything else is very much the same. Jerry showed you how easy the installation process is. And then again, you apply the license key and follow the getting started guide. All right, I think that's all we had on the, yep, that is all we had on the logistics of signing up for the beta test itself. So we do have a couple questions here in the chat. The first one is on the inventory report. Does it also create a flow chart?
A flow chart of the actual programs? No, it doesn't. No, we don't.
Okay. And in the SMF records, why were there so many 201 type records when you only had 5 or 6 jobs?
Because
seems like
we
there
don't
should be a lot fewer.
We take any module that gets run, any program that gets executed, it goes through fetch, and we don't want to take the time to go and look at this VSAM KSDS, determine whether this is one of the COBOL executables that we're interested in. That would have a really bad impact on your system performance. So what we do instead is every time a program gets executed, we write the SMF record. So and then we can do the heavy lifting in a batch mode and not impact your system.
All right, thanks, Jerry. We do have a question on, does this also monitor programs in kicks?
Yes, because they're going to get fetched.
Okay, so any subsystem that runs a fetch request will write out that type 2. Well,
Right.
201 in our case, it's whatever you decide to customize it for.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
At the moment, I don't have any additional questions. So I will take a quick opportunity to mention that in the handouts section of GoToWebinar here, we do have 2 files. One is the COBOL V6 migration presentation that Tom Ross gives at Share. So that's a copy of his slide deck that he uses there. And then we've also included a copy of our pocket reference guide. It just has a lot of handy information tidbits, mostly focused around storage management because that's what we do. So hopefully you'll find that to be useful. So expanding on the question from before about why are there so many SMF records, trying to clarify that a little bit better. It's not just the 5 jobs that we ran. It is logging every single fetch request that the system runs, right? So that's any kind of subsystem or background job that's running. So yes, we ran 5 jobs, but you know the system itself is doing tons of things we don't know about. Is there a way for us to exclude started tasks from the fetch watching?
No, there isn't. Once again, we could do that type of processing, but it's going to take time, and that's going to impact your system. And we'd rather just, okay, there's a fetch that went on, we write the SMF record, and then we can come back and look at them and sort through them in a batch mode and not impact your system.
I guess that does kind of bring up the idea of, if you have fairly small man data sets, they might need to have either more added or they're just going to get dumped a lot faster.
Correct.
So I guess that is one consideration that we should add. Okay. So far, there's no additional questions in here. So I think we might actually be able to end a webinar early for once. Oh, question just came up. When is GA? Jerry, do we know when?
No, it depends on what the beta uncovers. People have requirements, things that they feel would really be relevant. We would add those in, and then we'd go GA.
Well, actually, I take it back, Jerry. It appears management does have a targeted date of the end of March. That's why if you have the beta request in before the end of March, that's why you get that free 90-day key.
I recant.
This one looks like it is more for Tom. Can we continue for now running COBOL 4.2 programs on ZOS 2.5 and 3.1?
Yeah, good question, and we get it all the time. One of the great things about IBM Z is everything runs forever. So yes, you can keep running OSVS COBOL programs; they won't stop. Although we do have a kind of a plan to make that stop, but your COBOL version 4 programs will run for a long time, and you get service for running them. If you get a production append with a COBOL version 4 program and call IBM and say, this looks like something failed on the IBM side, our service folks will look at it. They'll check out dumps and they'll figure out what went wrong with your COBOL version 4 out of service compiled programs, because the executables are not using the compiler. They're using language environment, which is part of ZOS. So as long as your ZOS is supported, you get support. Now, if you try to compile with COBOL version 4 and it breaks and you call IBM, we'll say, yeah, no help here. Try COBOL version 6 and call us back. But running the old programs, you can continue to do. That's all.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way to look at it, and I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, compilers are weird that way because the compiler builds something that's separate from the compiler itself, and that separate thing, it has its own life and service properties. So not like DB2 or KIX or ZOS.
All right. Any other last minute questions here? And of course, if we don't get to any of your questions, you can send those to cmmsupport@dtssoftware.com, and we'll get back to you with answers on that. And within probably the next 24 hours, hopefully sooner, we will send out that follow-up email that has the link to the recording and the slide deck. All right, looks like that's it. Thank you everybody for attending, and we will see you at well, the February webinar, hopefully. Don't know what that is quite yet. But yeah, we'll have info for the February webinar coming out here soon. And again, thank you everyone for attending.
Cheers.